Cop spat on elderly woman in rage, then learned her son was the new police chief in town. The air crackled with hate, thick as the summer heat in Willow Creek. A single act of cop spit landing on an elderly woman's cheek ignited a fire that would burn through the town's fragile peace. It was late afternoon, the sun bleeding orange over the cracked sidewalks of Main Street. Clara Washington, 78, stood outside the corner store, her hands trembling not from age but from the venom hurled her way. Officer Daniel Hargrove, badge glinting like a taunt, had stopped her for loitering. Clara, with her gray hair pulled tight and her faded dress pressed neat, had only been waiting for her grandson to buy milk. But to Hargrove, she was a Targeta black woman whose presence in this mostly white town seemed to offend his very existence. "Move along, or I'll make you," he snarled, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. Clara's eyes, deep with decades of endured slights, met his without flinching. "I'm not your enemy, son," she said softly. That word sounded a fuse. Hargrove's face twisted, and in a flash, he spat, the act so raw it silenced the growing crowd. Clara didn't wipe her face. She stood taller, her dignity a shield against his rage. The onlookers gasped, some cheering Hargrove's cruelty, others muttering in disgust. Willow Creek was a town split by invisible lines: race, class, history, and this moment tore those lines wide open. Clara's grandson, Jamal, pushed through the crowd, his fists clenched, but Clara's hand on his arm stopped him. "Not like this," she whispered. The boy's eyes burned, but he obeyed. Hargrove smirked, emboldened by the crowd's division. He didn't know Clara's story, how she'd raised 3 kids alone after her husband died in a mill accident, how she'd marched in the 60s, how her quiet strength had held her family together through decades of whispered slurs and closed doors. To him, she was just another problem to control. But Clara wasn't alone anymore. Word of the incident spread like wildfire, and by nightfall, it reached the new police chief, Michael Washington. Michael, Clara's eldest son, had just taken the job after years in a neighboring city's force. He'd returned to Willow Creek to mend its broken trust, to prove that justice could wear a badge and still be fair. No one in town, least of all Hargrove, knew the chief was Clara's son. Michael heard the story from a rookie cop, his jaw tightening with each word. He'd seen his mother endure too much snide comments at church, cold stares in stores, but this was a violation that cut deeper than any insult. He drove to the station, his calm exterior masking his storm within. The next morning, Hargrove was called into the chief's office. He sauntered in, expecting a pat on the back from a boss he assumed shared his biases. Instead, he found Michael, his face unreadable but his eyes like steel. "You spat on a civilian yesterday," Michael said, his voice low, each word deliberate. "An elderly woman. My mother." The color drained from Hargrove's face. He stammered, "Two didn't know, sir." But Michael wasn't interested in excuses. "You didn't need to know who she was to treat her like a human being," he said. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Hargrove's badge, once a symbol of power, now felt like a weight pulling him under. Michael didn't fire him, not yet. Instead, he suspended Hargrove without pay and mandated a public apology. "You'll face her, and you'll face this town," Michael said. "If you can't, that badge means nothing." The news hit Willow Creek like a thunderclap. Some cheered the chief's resolve. Others whispered that he was playing favorites for his family. The town's fault lines deepened. The apology came at a town hall meeting, packed to the rafters. Clara sat in the front row, her face serene but unyielding. Hargrove, pale and sweating, stood at the podium. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I was wrong," he said. "I disrespected Mrs. Washington, and I disgraced this badge." The words were stiff, but Clara's steady gaze seemed to pull them out of him. Some in the crowd clapped, others sat in stony silence. Afterward, Clara approached him. The room hushed. "I forgive you," she said, her voice clear. "Not for you, but for me. Hate doesn't heal hate." Hargrove's eyes dropped, unable to meet hers. For the first time, he felt the weight of his actions, not the badge, not the power, but the shame. Michael watched from the side, pride and pain warring in his chest. He knew this was only a start. Willow Creek's wounds ran deep. Generations of slurs, red lines, and mistrust couldn't be erased by one apology. But Clara's strength, her refusal to let hate define her, was a beacon. Michael vowed to rebuild the force, to root out those who saw the badge as a weapon rather than a duty. As Clara left the hall, a young girl from the crowd ran up, slipping her hand into Clara's. "You're brave," the girl whispered. Clara smiled, her eyes bright. "We all are, child, when we choose to be." Willow Creek didn't change overnight. Whispers persisted, and some clung to their prejudices like lifelines. But Clara's stand, and Michael's justice, planted a seed. The town began to talk not just in anger, but in hope. Hargrove, haunted by his own actions, started volunteering at a community center, his eyes open to the lives he'd once dismissed. Clara, meanwhile, kept walking Main Street, her head high. She wasn't just the chief's mother, she was a reminder that dignity could outlast hate, that one woman's courage could ripple through a town, maybe even a world. And in Willow Creek, those ripples were just beginning. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.